When Ravan abducts Sita, it is not the real Sita.
Clone, an illusion created called Maya Sita. Maya Sita was later incarnated as Draupadi. That is the reason why Agni Pariksha was done, was to make this exchange possible.
Brahma gets beheaded by Shiva.
Ultimately, this amounts to Brahma Hatya. At one particular place, that head detaches itself and falls down. Mahadev knows as he has been purged of his sin. And that place today is called Kashi. Brahma with lust starts chasing Brahmi. Brahma used to have 5 heads, and each head was grew to look at Brahmi from different directions. When Brahmi rises up in the sky, there's a head that comes on the top of Brahma, which is the 5th head. And that is the one that Mahadev chops off.
People don't quite worship Brahma. Why is that the case?
Vishnu gets the Sudarshan Chakra from Mahadev. Jaya-Vijaya, we choose 3 births. They will take birth in Treta Yuga as Ravan and Kumbhakarna, and they'll be killed by Ram. And then in Dwapar Yuga, they will be born as Shishupal, who are ultimately killed by Krishna. Parvati, after a point comes when she starts eating only leaves. That is when Mahadev accepts her. For a long time, there's no news of any child. As Agni enters the realm of Mahadev and Parvati, Shiva's semen falls. From that semen is born
Satyarth Nayak is a best-selling author and screenwriter whose work spans mythology, biography and historical fiction. A former SARC award-winning correspondent with CNN IBN and an alumnus of the prestigious St. Stephen's College, he is the author of Mahagatha, an epic collection of 100 mythological tales from the Puranas that has become a national bestseller with over 1 lakh copies sold and translations in multiple languages, including Chinese.
It was because of the curse that Ganga becomes a sacred Ganga river, Saraswati disappears, and Lakshmi becomes a sacred Tulsi plant.
Vishnu says you will take birth as the Tulsi plant. But don't worry, I'll also reincarnate as the Shaligram, the stone.
Vishnu was beheaded and this face transplant had happened, and it was the face of the horse. Please take us through that. Vishwamitra at one point considered eating meat.
Yeah, disciples are horrified. How can you even offer meat to us? Vishwamitra says no. Vindhya at one point of time becomes very jealous of another mountain called Sumeru. It's the tallest of the mountains. So overnight, Vindhya raises itself high and high and high, blocking the way of the sun.
Some of his earlier works include the acclaimed biography Sridevi, the eternal screen goddess, and the thriller The Emperor's Riddles. On screen, he scripted Sony TV's grand historical series Horus, one of India's most expensive shows to date. In today's episode of the Body to Being podcast, we are delighted to welcome the illustrious Satyarth Nayak.
So today, when we talk about Ravan and Ram, and how, we burn the putla of Ravan, that he was the one who abducted Sita, he was the one who fought with Ram, he was the one who challenged Ram, he was this evil creature. Now you realize that ultimately behind that hatred is a love story of Bhagwan and Bhakt, of Ram and Ravan. जो enmity hai of Ravan and Ram, this was actually a love story. They were doing it so that they could be killed as soon as possible and go back to Vaikuntha.
Beautiful. Ravan is Ram's devotee in his previous birth. In today's episode, we dive into the fascinating world of the Puranas with stories you may have never heard of before. Why does Vishnu keep returning in different avatars? Why is it that Brahma is never worshipped when Vishnu and Shiva are? And did you know that Ravan was Ram's devotee in one of his previous lives? Get ready to explore the fascinating world of the Puranas with hidden insights, surprising twists, and timeless wisdom with the best-selling author of Mahagatha, Mr. Satyarth Nayak. But before we begin, I have a little request. Through our masterclasses, we aim to bring to you timeless wisdom from authentic speakers. So I would greatly appreciate if you can support us by subscribing to our channel and try sharing this video with at least one individual. Thank you. Namaskaram and welcome to Body to Being, Mr. Satyarth Nayak. It's such a pleasure
Thank you,
to have
Shlloka.
you.
Thank you for having me here. I've heard so much about your podcast, so it's an absolute pleasure to be sitting here with you, and let's hope we have some very interesting content for your audiences out there.
Thank you, likewise. And we've been really looking forward for this conversation. It's been a long time overdue.
Yes.
Your rendition of the Puranas, Mahagatha, the 100 tales of the Puranas, makes one often pause and wonder, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Because it is so full of twists, turns, cosmic drama that to me personally, I don't think I found the Puranas as exciting until I viewed it through your storytelling.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, really, truly. So where do we begin?
Right, exactly. Where do we begin? There are 36 Purans. Let's put that out first. And what's interesting about the Purans, though, is something I think your audiences should know, is that the stories in the Purans are not unidimensional. The stories in the Purans have multiple versions across multiple texts. So if one particular version, for example, let's take the example of creation. The very basic. Every Purana starts with cosmogony or creation of the universe. So the Purans that are dedicated to Lord Vishnu, they very clearly mention that it is Lord Vishnu who began creation. While there are Puranas that are dedicated to Lord Mahadev, they say Shiva initiated creation. And those that are dedicated to Lord Brahma say Brahma initiated creation. So multiple truths, plurality. Hinduism has always been about plurality, multiple truths. We don't have a single book. We don't have one single commandment to follow. We have multiplicity. We have always had a plethora of voices, plethora of truths, and that can get confusing, extremely confounding, very puzzling. But then at the same time, any path you choose, any truth that works for you, good enough. Hinduism does not discriminate, and every path will take you to that higher consciousness, the ultimate truth, the higher reality.
And therefore,
I
so
think
many interpretations.
so many interpretations, so many versions, which is why I think Hinduism has evolved and remains a living religion and not just something that is a monument of the past.
Correct, correct, correct. So let's start right from the beginning. As per the Puranas, how did life come to be on this planet? Where did life begin, basically?
Right. So life, of course, began with the concept of the Hiranyagarbha, which is where the golden egg, so to speak, which is where you have the coming of the Trinity. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, they emerge from the cosmos, so to speak. Of course, as gods, they are timeless, and some would say that they are never created, but they were always there. So there's nothing that began. It has always been there. That's why Hinduism is called Sanatan, that we don't have a beginning or an end. We are timeless. So that is the concept of the gods. But talk about humans. How did the first human pair get created? That is interesting. It comes from Brahma's, need to create. And initially, he creates a lot of creatures who he thinks would help him perpetuate the process of creation and, keep the universe alive, so to speak. But either they're not interested, they choose the spiritual path rather than the physical path, or they are creatures who are not actively engaged within the principle of creation itself. Brahma realizes that they are not someone who would be able to keep the propagation alive. So then he looks for inspiration, and then Vishnu advises him that why don't you go and seek out Mahadev? If you seek out Mahadev, you will find the secret of the universe, the secret of the creation of the universe, which will help you create the first human pair. So Brahma prays to Mahadev, stands in front of Mahadev, and in front of him, Mahadev manifests himself in that glorious avatar called the Ardhanarishwara. So he manifests as half woman and half man. And when Brahma realizes that, he realizes that he needs to create a human pair which is half male and half female, and only when the two will come together can there be creation. So he creates the first human pair called Brahmi, the daughter of Brahma, and Manu, the son of Brahma. From Manu we get the word Manushya or Manav, and that is how the human race begins from that particular point.
Okay. So at this point, Brahma gets beheaded by Shiva because of Brahmi.
Yes.
Okay. Can you take us through that story?
Yeah, that's again a very extremely interesting. So what happens is, like I mentioned in the beginning, that there were certain beings that Brahma created, and he wanted them to help him perpetuate creation and take the universe ahead, and they refused. One of them was Narad. Narad, when he's created by Brahma and Brahma requests him to help him, aid him in the process of creation, Narad refuses. He says, I would rather choose the spiritual path and not the physical path. So Brahma gets angry and he curses Narad that since you have refused to be a part of this creation process, I curse you that you will become a Gandharva. You will be a wanderer. You will not be rooted to any particular spot on earth, but you will keep wandering for the rest of your life, which is what Narad basically does. He is the eternal wanderer. And of course, the Gandharva who sings and, he's melodious in terms of his music and his songs. But interestingly, Narad curses Brahma back. And the son curses the father back. And Narad says that just as you have cursed me, I curse you back, that you will fall in love with someone that you should not fall in love with. You will lust after something that you should not lust after, and that will lead to a big punishment that will come, that will befall you. So when Brahmi gets created, that curse takes effect. That curse fills Brahma with lust towards Brahmi, and he starts chasing Brahmi. He's lusting after Brahmi, and that is when then Mahadev comes and he tries to first pacify Brahma. But Brahma by then is overpowered with lust. And what has happened is that in every direction that Brahmi runs, a head sprouts. So Brahma at this point has 5 heads, each head looking in one particular direction to gaze at Brahmi. And when the 5th head comes on top of all his 4 heads, that's when Mahadev finally, to calm him down, chops that 5th head off. Now, that of course is a violent act, and that sudden violence that is inflicted on Brahma, it suddenly makes him pause. And that suddenly puts the curse at rest, and he's cleansed of that curse, so to speak, and he stops and he apologizes. He realizes that what he was doing was wrong, and the curse has now left him, and he's now purged of that curse. And but interestingly, what happens is that that 5th head gets stuck to the hand of Mahadev. Now, when the gods ask how is that possible, Indra replies that, see, the problem here is that while what Mahadev did was right, he had to chop Brahma's head off to calm him down and save Brahmi. Ultimately, this amounts to Brahma Hatya. Because of that, that head will remain, stuck to his hand until he is purged of that sin. So now Mahadev, who's Devon ka Dev, he now wanders throughout the cosmos looking for redemption. How do I get myself purged of this particular sin of Brahma Hatya? He walks across heaven, across hell. Nowhere does he find any sort of redemption. Finally, he's back on earth. And at one particular place, when he lands at that particular place, that head detaches itself and falls down. So at that point, Mahadev knows as he has been purged of his sin. And that place today is called Kashi. Kashi was born there, which is why today people
acha.
go to Kashi, because that is the place that will wash you of all your sins, and you'll come back purged and pure.
Okay, that is why it's said that I actually had this question for you. It is said that Kashi is the oldest city in the world, and it's not a city that was created; it was a city that was discovered.
Discovered in so many ways that patch of land had that power that it could, it could purge you of all your sins, and you could just become pure all over again.
Okay, and tell me something. When we've seen this depiction of Shiva
Yeah.
with a skull in his hand.
Yes.
ये इसका skull है क्या?
Exactly. That is his Kapali form. So what happened after a point, all the flesh of that skull starts falling off, and he's left with only the skull, only the bones. So then he is called in that form. Mahadev is called Kapali. And so from there on, as he's wandering the earth, and the moment he enters Kashi, he's purged.
So there is this unmatched chemistry between Shiva and Vishnu through the lore of the Mahagathas. So can you tell us a little bit about the bromance between Shiva and Vishnu?
That, I think, is one of my most fascinating aspects of the Purans that you'll find in Mahagatha. The kind of beautiful relationship that Vishnu and Mahadev share. The kind of equation that is there between the preserver and the destroyer. So, and there are stories that tell you that, how they help each other in various circumstances. Like there's a story about how, again, one version of the Puranas tells you that Vishnu gets the Sudarshan Chakra from Mahadev.
I was astonished to learn this.
It's a fascinating story.
No one knows
I mean,
this.
Exactly. I mean, and at the same time, there's a story where you have Vishnu saving Mahadev from various demons, because Mahadev is supposed to be Bholenath. He anyone who pleases him, he is very happy to give him a boon. And there are various instances where demons use that against him. And when he is caught in that kind of situation, it is Vishnu who comes and saves him. And using his wit and his presence of mind, the way he saves Mahadev is very interesting. Those stories are there. Like, for example, there's a story. Let's talk about the Sudarshan story. I think it's a beautiful story. I think it's one of my favorite stories in Mahagatha. So Vishnu was fighting demons throughout, and then he felt at one point of time that I need a weapon that really would help me, because there are just so many demons that it is becoming difficult for me, even for me, to be able to conquer them all. So he starts praying to Mahadev. He creates this beautiful mud shivling that he creates, and every day he anoints it with 1,000 lotus flowers. That goes on for a very long time, and Mahadev is extremely pleased with what he sees. He says, okay, I'll make myself manifest, but I'll give him one last test. So on the final day, after Vishnu has covered the shivling with 1,000 lotuses, Mahadev steals one lotus. So when Vishnu counts the lotuses, he finds them that just 999. He says, oh my God, what happened to one more? And he knows that if the ritual is not completed, years of penance and years of meditation, all this tapasya will go to naught. So what does he do? There are no more lotus flowers around to help him. And then he realizes that one of his names given by his devotees is Kamal Nayan, which means that his eyes are like the lotus flower. So then Vishnu says, why don't I do that? So he plucks out one of his eyes and he puts that on the shivling as the 1,000th lotus flower. And that, of course, completely touches Mahadev, and he appears and he instantly heals Vishnu back. and he says, I accept, your puja, and he gives him the Sudarshan chakra, which is why the chakra is called Sudarshan. It comes from righteous vision. Also, the way, Vishnu and Mahadev, they keep calming each other in extremely dire circumstances. Like when Sati immolates herself,
Yeah.
and Mahadev puts her corpse on his shoulder, and he's doing the Tandav, the Rudra Tandav, because he's so filled with grief and anger and all of that. It is Vishnu who comes and calms him down. It is Vishnu who uses his chakra, the same chakra, to cut the body of Sati into 56 pieces, which fall on earth
It's
and
a Shakti
create
Peeths.
the Shakti Peeths.
Okay,
And that is
yeah.
where Shiva is calmed, and he comes out of that Rudra state and he is calmed. Similarly,
Why does that calm him?
no, because it is the sight of the body that was torturing him. The sight of the burnt corpse of Sati that was torturing him. Once that load goes off his body, then that calms him down.
Do you sense a beautiful parallel between this and our death rituals of dispersing the ashes? कहते हैं ना
Yeah.
उसमें शांति मिलती है लोगों को.
Absolutely, you're
Because you
right.
become detached from the corporeal self.
Yes. Because you kind of that distance
Yeah, yeah,
between
yeah.
you and the physical self
Yeah.
that no longer is breathing.
Yeah.
I think that does create some sort of that distance. I
Distance.
think creates some sort of
Relief.
an acceptance that ultimately
Acceptance.
you have to now
Let
be
go.
without, and you have to let go.
Yeah.
So, and the similar
Yeah.
situation happens when right after Vishnu as Narasimha avatar, he has killed Hiranyakashipu, and now that Narasimha avatar is filled with rage because he's drunk on the blood of Hiranyakashipu, and in that state, the Rajas gun, which is what comes from the blood, that fills him so much with rage that he starts wandering around the universe in an almost destructive state. And everybody is afraid to see because Narasimha as itself is a ferocious avatar, half man, half lion. And he starts roaring through the universe and trying to tear the universe down because he is in that Raja state, highly excited state that is filled with, a lot of kinetic energy. So then it is Mahadev who comes as Sharab. Sharab avatar is the avatar of a bird. So Sharab and Narasimha fight, and ultimately Sharab calms Narasimha down. So, similar circumstances where you
okay.
have the two gods, each
Acha.
calming the other down. And so
And this is
again,
also
beautiful.
the first time where Vishnu, who takes the avatar of Narasimha,
Yeah.
becomes the destroyer.
Kind of. I mean, he doesn't destroy anything per se, but he enters that mode because he's so filled with bloodlust.
Yeah.
That is. Similarly, if you see when Kali kills Raktabij,
Yeah.
she's also in that state of complete fury and anger.
Correct.
And she wanders the earth, in an extremely ferocious state. And the whole universe is afraid that what could Mata do in this particular state. Again, it is Mahadev who comes and lies down in her path, and that calms her down. So I think Mahadev has always been the very calming force. Despite the fact that he is the destroyer, it is he who calms. It is he who brings a certain amount of peace. And if you take this allegory even further, when the halahal comes out of the ocean, that also in itself is symbolic of destruction. It threatens to destroy the universe, just as Narasimha was threatening in that avatar, or as Ma Kali was threatening in that avatar. Even the halahal poison threatens destruction. So it is Mahadev who comes and he drinks it, and then in a way he calms the halahal down. He takes the poison into himself. So I think Mahadev as a calming agent is again a
Yeah,
very beautiful
very
aspect of the
beautiful.
Puranas, the way he puts everything
Because it's almost
down.
like a role reversal.
It is.
For Shiva.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Vishnu,
exactly.
you understand, right? Vishnu
Yeah,
is like that.
Yeah.
But Shiva to tamas hai.
Tamas
Shiva,
hai, but he is the one who comes and, in that point he becomes the preserver. He becomes the protector, while it is Vishnu who in that particular zone is almost in a destructive mode. There are no fixed rules, there are no fixed truths within the Puranas. Everything is so fluid.
And there's no right and wrong,
so
na? It's so
grey,
beautiful.
and no right
Yeah,
and wrong.
yeah.
That even you have, the most fascinating for me is the fact that you have asuras who can behave extremely virtuous,
Yes.
and gods who can behave in
very
the most
vile.
vile ways possible.
Yeah.
So even that is there in the Puranas.
Yes.
So it can be very confounding for someone to read the Puranas. Say, what truth do I follow?
Exactly.
What is the lesson that I
Exactly.
take? Because there's just so much confusion, and yet within all that confusion, all that bewilderment, all that puzzlement, once in a while, one truth shines bright. One law comes across, one beautiful thought touches you, and you realize that this is what I had been waiting for all my life, and that one answer changes you or heals you.
What is that one answer for you?
I think
Or
for
one
me,
truth for you?
For me, the seminal truth from the Puranas has
Yeah.
always been the fact that, that we are all connected. We are all interconnected with each other. That we are each other's beginnings and we are each other's endings. The fact that whatever I do will impact you and vice versa. That there are no individual stories, there are no separate stories. We are all episodes interlinked in this entire continuum, a cosmic chain of universe, and we are all there, and we all impact each other through our actions, our words. And that is where, if you see Mahagatha is not a collection of random stories, because that is not how the Puranas are written. It is about episodes that are interlinked, that are interconnected. Every story has a past and a future, has a karma and a karma phal. And that is how that link, that linkages, that cosmic link is what makes this entire story one story. So while there are 100 tales, there are 100 gathas, but together they are one big Mahagatha, which is how the book is. And that is why you realize that, and that gives you a very holistic picture of the universe, because you realize that acha, one particular incident that happened in Satyuga
Yeah.
effects you see in Dwapar Yuga, or a particular event in Dwapar Yuga, you realize that the seeds of this particular action was sown way back in Satyuga. So it's about cycles completing themselves. It's about, every cosmic cycle has to complete itself, and then a new cycle begins. And everything becomes a catalyst, a curse, a boon, a Narad, a Shiv, a Mahadev, a Vishnu. They all are catalysts in these actions. How to keep the cycles completing themselves, creating more and more, and how the universe keeps functioning that way. So it's a wonderful ecosystem of, so to speak. That is what the Puranas are.
You said that, the seeds are sown, there's a cause and effect relationship. मुझे आप ऐसे एक instance बताइए, some instance, some action that must have happened in a previous time, previous युग, previous era, जिसका फल हम इस युग में देख रहे हैं, which has reaped itself or manifested itself as maybe a major event or some such thing
Sure,
that is in our real-time experience.
sure. So let's take the story of Jaya and Vijaya.
Okay.
That I think will beautifully explain this particular aspect of the Puranas. So Jaya and Vijaya are the two Dwarpals, or the sentries of Vaikunt, which is the heavenly abode of Lord Vishnu. Now, when Brahma was creating, the universe, the first thing he creates are 4 Manas Putras. Manas Putras are children that he creates from his mind. And because they are from his mind, Manas, they are his sons, so Manas Putras. Now, the Manas Putras are highly evolved beings, but they remain in a very childlike state, because that is how they were created. And they also wanted to remain in that pure childlike form forever. So once they are created, they are manifested, they start wandering the universe to see what all Brahma has created. They're fascinated by what their heavenly Father has, brought to effect. And as they're walking around, they come to Vaikunt. And of course, they want to see Lord Vishnu and seek his blessings. As they're about to enter, Jaya and Vijay stop them. That because they don't know who these children are. They're like, you cannot enter, and Vaikunt has certain rules. You can only enter Vaikunt if you have, if you have shorn of all attachments, all Maya. It's for the highest, most evolved
Beings.
and you just cannot enter. And they try to explain that they are Manas Putras of Brahma, but they don't understand. So ultimately, Jaya and Vijay says, he will not be able to meet you. Leave. So the Manas Putras get angry, and they curse Jaya and Vijay, that it is because of you that you are keeping us away from the Lord. So now we will curse you that you will now be away from the Lord. So we curse you that you will now take birth on earth, and you will forever be away from Lord Vishnu. You'll never be able to meet him anymore. You'll only be earthly beings and no longer the sentries of Vaikunt. And as they leave and Vishnu comes to the door, Jaya and Vijay fall at his feet that we cannot live without you. We cannot be separated from you. So do something. How can we come back to your realm, and how can we serve you again? Vishnu says, I cannot change the curse. I can modify it. I give you an option. 1, you can take 3 births on earth. Away from Vaikunt, 3 births on earth. Those 3 births, you will be my enemy on earth, because even I will be taking avatar, a human avatar on earth. So we will be enemies of each other in these 3 births. After 3 births are complete, you'll come back to Vaikunt. Or the second option, you can take 7 births on earth, and we shall be friends on earth. And then you'll come back to Vaikunt. What do you choose? 3 births as my enemy on earth, or 7 births as my friend on earth? What will you choose? And Jaya and Vijay look at each other and they say, 3 births. Even if that means that we'll be your enemies on earth, but at least we'll come back to Vaikunt way sooner. 7 births is an extremely long time for us to be on earth. So he chooses and he agrees to that. And they make one more request. They say, We just have one more request. In every 3 birth that we are your enemy, we want that you should kill us. You should rid us of that mortal body so that we can take the next birth and then the final one and then come back to Vaikuntha. And Vishnu agrees and says that is how it will be. In every birth that you will take as my enemy on earth, I am the one who will slay you. And as they leave to prepare for that punishment, Vishnu looks at the timeline and he sees that what is going to happen. And he sees that in Satyuga, Jaya and Vijaya will take birth as Hiranyakashyap and Hiranyakashipu. And they will be killed by Vishnu in his various avatars.
That's the first birth.
That's the first. Then they will take birth in Treta Yuga as Ravan and Kumbhakarna. And they will be killed by Ram. And then in Dwapar Yuga, they will be born as Shishupal and one of his cousins, who are ultimately killed by Krishna. So all the avatars of Vishnu kill the various earthly avatars of Jaya and Vijaya. So today, when we talk about Ravan and Ram, and how, we burn the putla of Ravan, that he was the one who abducted Sita, he was the one who fought with Ram, he was the one who challenged Ram, he was this evil creature. Now you realize that ultimately behind that hatred is a love story. A love story of Bhagwan and Bhakt.
Ram
of
and
Ram
Ravan.
and Ravan. Of Vishnu and Jai and Vijay. Ki jo enmity hai of Ravan and Ram, this was actually a love story. They were doing it so that they could be killed as soon as possible and go back to Vaikuntha.
Beautiful.
So the fact that every story in the Puranas is not a single story. Within its womb, there are so many other stories. It's like every story is a Hiranyagarbha. Within that lie these truths that suddenly make you realize, that suddenly expands your mindset. So let me summarize this for your viewers.
Yeah.
In the first instance, Jay and Vijay take birth as Hiranyakashyap and Hiranyakashipu.
Yeah.
Hiranyakashyap is killed by the Varaha avatar of Vishnu. Hiranyakashipu is killed by the Narsimha avatar of Vishnu. In the second instance, which is the Treta Yuga, the two brothers take birth as Ravan and Kumbhakarna and are killed by Ram, which is again an avatar of Vishnu. And the Dwapar Yuga, they take birth as Shishupal and one of his cousins, and they're killed by Krishna, who is again an avatar of Vishnu. So that is how the curse gets fulfilled. The 3 births are completed, and Jai and Vijay come back to Vaikuntha.
So Vishnu, who is actually a Ram avatar and a Krishna avatar,
Yes.
kills Ravan,
Yeah.
and then Krishna ends up killing these two.
Yeah.
Actually, Ravan is Ram's devotee in his previous birth.
Yes, exactly.
So, and then
Exactly.
comes back as his enemy because he
Yeah,
wants to
yeah.
be closer to Ram again or Vishnu
Absolutely,
again.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Ram is essentially killing Ravan
Yeah.
to liberate him,
To
correct?
liberate him, exactly. I mean, of course, within the Ramayana itself, there is the whole cause and effect, karma and karma phal. Ravan is killed because of his actions. But there's a larger story here. And a larger story is a larger love story about Vishnu and Jai and Vijay.
And even the killing, I see the intention is so noble.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Isn't
of
it
course.
slightly oxymoron?
Yeah. So it's not exactly killing. It's like you said, it's delivering. It's liberating them from that second birth so that they can go and take the third birth and finally be free of that curse.
So Vishnu is known to take these different avatars, especially the human forms. So we have Parshuram, we have Ram, we have Krishna. But why?
Yeah. Again, very interesting story in the Purans. So it so happens in Satyuga that the Devatas and the Asuras are constantly fighting. The Asuras, their guru is Shukracharya. And it so happens that at one point, the Asuras are being mercilessly killed. So Shukracharya realizes that he needs a weapon, a really powerful weapon that can protect the entire Asura clan. So he says, I'll do something. He calls the Asuras and tells them, I'll go and I'll pray to Mahadev. This will be a very long, form of penance. It may go into thousands of years. So while that I'm away, you might feel orphaned. So do one thing. Go and stay in my house with my parents. My father, Sage Bhrigu, and my mother, Kavya Mata. Stay with them. They will protect you. Once I'm back with the weapon, we can face the gods again. So he goes, he starts meditating, and all the Asuras assemble in the hermitage of Lord Bhrigu. Now, when the Devas come to know about this, they think it's a good opportunity. With Shukracharya out of the picture, and, in a way, the Asuras are orphaned, they are vulnerable. So let's go and kill them for good. So Vishnu, Indra, and all the other gods, they storm the hermitage of Bhrigu. At that point of time, Bhrigu is not there at the hermitage, only Kavya Mata is present. And she stands up for the Asuras. She says, listen, they belong to my son. They have come here trusting my son and us. They're under our roof, and it is our duty to protect them as their hosts. So I will not let you kill them. So there's a debate that happens between Kavya Mata and Lord Vishnu. Vishnu says, but listen, they are evil. They are asuras. They need to be killed for the good of mankind, for the good of the universe. But Kavya Mata says, I don't agree. I get what you're trying to tell me, but right now, as the mother of my son Shukracharya, who's their guru, it is my duty first to protect them, to give them sanctuary. So Vishnu threatens her. She does not budge. Vishnu then has to take out his Sudarshan Chakra and he beheads Kavya Mata. So as she falls down dead, Bhrigu enters, and Bhrigu then curses Vishnu that just the way you have made me, you filled me with pain, with hurt, I curse you that you will also take avatars as in human forms on earth, and you will go through the same emotions that I am going through. Every emotion of separation, of pain, of hurt, of tears that you give us humans to undergo, you will also go as a human being because you will take human avatars. And Vishnu folds his hands and says, I accept. And that is how from there on, the avatars start happening. In every yug, Vishnu takes avatars. Finally, towards Treta Yuga, come Parshuram, Ram and Krishna, the human avatars. And they also go through all the human emotions that ordinary human beings go through.
तो बेसिकली सब कुछ कर्सेस पे हो रहा है.
But what is beautiful about Vishnu here is that I think needs to be told. I think my admiration for Lord Vishnu has grown because of this particular thing. That Lord Vishnu being the preserver, the protector, in every yug he has been cursed. And in every yug he has done something that might, on the face of it, appear unpleasant, but had to be done for the good of mankind. For Vishnu it has always been about the greater good. Any action, however unlikable, unpleasant, if it is for the greater good, it has to be done. And he has done that. And for every of those actions, he has been cursed.
And paid a price.
And every time he has folded his hands and accepted that curse. In Satyuga it happens now. He has to kill Kavya Mata. Bhrigu curses him and he accepts it. In Treta Yuga, he gets cursed by Vrinda because he has to destroy her chastity. That is the only way Vrinda's husband Jalandhar can be killed. Because Jalandhar's power comes from Vrinda's chastity. So when Vishnu comes to Vrinda in the form of Jalandhar and her chastity is broken, she curses Vishnu that I was your devotee and you tricked me. So I curse you that just the way you have separated me from my love, your love will be separated from you as well. That is where Ram and Sita story is connected. That Sita gets separated from Ram. Vishnu accepts that curse as well. And finally in Dwapar Yuga, in Mahabharata, Gandhari curses Krishna that because of you, my 100 sons were killed.
Yeah.
But that also had to be done for the good of mankind, for the good of Dharma. And Vishnu accepts that curse as well, and his own clan gets destroyed. So every yuga, Vishnu has accepted a curse for doing good, doing good for humanity. And in every yuga, he's accepted that with the greatest of humility, and he has faced the consequences of that. Every curse, he has undergone that. So that I think is a beautiful aspect about Lord Vishnu.
Yeah, and amongst the stories, Sita and Ram parting ways because of this curse, I don't think people know.
Exactly. It is so wonderful that, again, like we talk about cause and effect. Yeah. So something that happens in Treta Yuga, the seeds were sown way back here. It was Vrinda's curse that, led to that particular. So every cycle has to be completed.
And I think these two powerful messages that you just brought out very beautifully. One is that, anything that was done was unpleasant but had a good intention. It was for the larger, good.
Yes.
And it was done with a sense of belonging and inclusivity.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then there was acceptance of the consequences. A lot of it can be implemented in the life that we live today.
Actually,
correct? Because लोग कहते हैं ना कि like I had this question, I was telling you, I had a conversation with Gyan Savira. So I said, in the work setup, sometimes you have to raise your voice. You have to get job done. You have to make the other person feel bad. But then what about karma? So then this answer was also replicated by her. If it's for the larger good, you do it, but with that sense of inclusivity. The intention has to be good.
Exactly. Because for Vishnu, the central concept, the central cardinal tenet has always been greater good. about saving, keeping Dharma alive. If you see Mahabharata, his entire, the whole journey of Krishna is about what can be done for greater good. Even if it's a war, which is full of bloodshed, and dynasties will end, and even someone as young as Abhimanyu has to be sacrificed. But if it is for the greater good and Dharma can be reinstalled, it is necessary. And so no matter what the consequences, the actions have to be taken.
Beautiful. One of the stories in the Mahagatha is Sita performing Shraddh for her father-in-law.
It's a beautiful story.
Beautiful
Yeah.
story. And very quickly, I'd like to mention that we recently had a podcast with on Pitradosh.
Okay.
And the guest mentioned that in our scriptures, there are mentions of a woman performing Shraddh for her father and father-in-law, which goes against the conventional patriarchal codes, right?
That's what the story echoes.
Exactly. And your story echoes that. So please take us through that.
So the story goes in the Puranas that when Ram, Sita and Lakshmana are in the forest, they have been exiled. They get the news that Dashrath has passed away. And of course, there's a lot of mourning, a lot of crying. And then the two brothers realize that we now have to do the Shraddh. So, and the Shraddh has to be completed before the sun sets. So they leave Sita by a river called Falgu. And they go to get the samagri that is important for the Shraddh. So Sita is sitting by the Falgu and she's waiting. And as she waits, the sun starts to set. And she realizes that there's very little time left and the brothers might not come back in time for the Shraddh. So she said, let me do it for Raja Dashrath with whatever I have available around me. So she uses 5 items. She takes water from the Falgu. She takes a leaf of a banyan tree. She takes milk from a cow. She lights a lamp, so that's fire, Agni. And she takes the ketki flower. These 5 items she uses and she performs the Shraddh. And at the end of it, the voice of Dashrath can be heard coming from the skies that, my dear Sita, thank you. I have received the Shraddh and I am satisfied. Within moments, the two brothers come and they're like, let's do the Shraddh. She says, I've done it already. And they don't believe her. She
Why?
says, how can you do that? You had nothing. There is no samagri. We have got the things that are required for the ritual. You had nothing here. What did you use? He said, I have used 5 items. They are my 5 witnesses. If you don't want to believe me, you can ask them. She said, Chalo batao. So out of all the 5 witnesses, only the banyan leaf says yes, she performed it. All the other 4 items lie. They say no, Sita has not performed the Shraddh. So they disbelieve her again. Only the banyan tree says she has. So the cow says no, the Agni says no, the fire says no, Falgu says no, and the 4th item also says no. Then when the brothers start doing it again, the voice of Dashrath comes and says, but why are you doing it again? I have already been offered the Shraddh by Sita. And that's when they realize that she was telling the truth. And they of course, ask her to forgive them. Sita forgives them, but not these 4 items which lied. And she curses all 4 of them. And she says, from now on, she says, the cow, you lied. I used your milk, but you lied. From now on, I curse you that your mouth will always be very filthy. She curses Agni, that I curse you, that you will now not be able to discriminate what offering is made to you. Whatever is offered to you, you'll have to digest that. Whether it's good, unclean, bad, filthy, whatever, everything you'll devour. Everything goes into your stomach. She curses Ketki again, that you remain the unfaithful and the lying object that you are, and your curse remains the same. You will not be used for any sort of worship. And she curses Falgu also, that you will lose your water. You will dry up. You will become a sandy basin. She only blesses the banyan leaf, that you will remain an evergreen tree. Your leaves will never fall, which is why banyan today remains an evergreen tree. So again, so many elements. One, of course, are the way the objects and their thoughts and how they are humanized. The concept of the banyan tree, how that remains, evergreen. And the most beautiful concept of a woman performing a Shraddh for her father-in-law. And you get a small glimpse of Ram disbelieving Sita, which of course manifests in a much bigger way later, when Agni Pariksha has to be demanded. Here also you get a small glimpse of that, like a prelude, where you have Bhagwan Ram does not believe that Sita has done what she's saying. So that element of disbelief between husband and wife, I think it's a very interesting glimpse that you get here in this story.
Okay, superb. When we're talking about Sita, I learned that when Ravan abducts Sita, it is not the real Sita, it is an illusion.
Yes, that's again a very fascinating story in the Purans. One version of the story which tells you that the one who was abducted by Ravan was not the actual Mata Sita, but a clone, an illusion created called Maya Sita. And the story goes that it is Agni who had created that illusion. And the plan was that once they would create a clone, the clone would be taken away, and while the clone is with Ravan in Lanka, the actual Sita would stay with Agni, inside Agni, in the womb of Agni, so to speak. Which is why at the end of the war, when Ravan is killed, there is talk of the need for Agni Pariksha. Now, many, of course, dispute Agni Pariksha as unfair, that why did Sita have to prove her chastity and her purity? But if this version is to be believed, this was done to make that exchange possible. That Maya Sita would then walk inside the fire, and the actual Sita would come out of the fire and go back to Ayodhya with Ram. So that is the reason why this story tells you that the reason why Agni Pariksha was done was to make this exchange possible. That within Agni, the exchange was made and the actual Sita walked out and went back to Ayodhya. Maya Sita also remains, and Maya Sita, in fact, another version says that Maya Sita was later incarnated as Draupadi. So Draupadi, who's supposed to have come out from fire as well, who is also Yajna again is because she is Maya Sita who took birth as Draupadi. So Maya Sita, in a way, kind of goes through humiliation twice in 2 yugas. In Treta Yuga, she is the one who's abducted and she is the one who's harassed as Sita in Lanka. And then in Dwapar Yuga, she is the one who takes birth as Draupadi and she is the one who's disrobed. So Maya Sita, in a way, kind of undergoes humiliation twice in 2 yugas, as per this story.
What is the importance of creation and why is creation so important? I'll tell you where I'm coming from. When we talk about Buddha, in Buddha's time, it is said that there were 40,000 monks. Had Buddha remained alive, he would have converted the entire world into monks.
Okay.
My understanding is that's because the idea of disillusionment is so potent in our culture. It's about dissolving, it's not about establishing yourself. Unlike the Western cultures, right? It's shunya, it is zero and merging with the rest of the cosmos. So we have the formlessness, which we, revere to as Shiva, Adi Yogi, whatever. Nothingness, emptiness, infinity. And then on one extreme side, we have the avatars of Vishnu. We, glorify creation and the many avatars of creation and to populate the world. This entire story that you just mentioned is about populating and creating.
Yes.
I struggle with this understanding because, in my heart, the idea of disillusionment is so strong because I come from the Shaivite lineage. And on the other hand, when I hear tales of such nature, I see that there is so much glorification of perpetuation and life on the planet, which is a lot of Shakti. I want to understand your views, basically.
Okay. So let's go back to the fact that, our cosmic trinity itself speaks of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, which is basically creation, preservation and destruction. So the fact that there are 3 gods manning these 3 departments, so to speak, there's this very clear division of labor between the 3 gods. The outset, we can say that all 3 aspects of the universe are equally celebrated within Hindu mythology.
Which is?
Creation, which is why we have Brahma, who creates. So creation is important. What is creation? It has to be also preserved. When you create something, that needs to be protected. So you have Vishnu, who takes care of preservation. But ultimately, all of it must also be destroyed. There must be dissolution in the end so that a new cycle of creation can begin. So then you have Mahadev. So the fact that you have 3 gods manning these 3 cosmic layers, so to speak, all 3 are equally important within Hindu mythology, within Hindu scriptures. Also, we need to understand that within Puranas, within Hindu mythology, everything is cyclical. We do not live a linear life. Everything is a cycle. So we begin with creation, then we come to the very height of preservation, and then we end with dissolution and destruction so that the next cycle begins. So ultimately, all 3 are important. So we do not fixate on one particular aspect, while of course, like you said, dissolution, destruction has its importance in terms of the nirgun, where there's nothing in terms of the formlessness. It is about being completely formless. At the same time, you also have Vishnu, who's celebrated for protecting, for keeping alive what has been created and preserving that as well. So I think both aspects are equally important. And there's a very interesting story here that I think will kind of capsulate this entire question of yours. So it once happened that Mahadev was at one particular point he was meditating, and nearby Daksha was having a ceremony. And because it was a ceremony, it was loud. There was music, there was chatter, there was all sorts of noises happening there, and they were disturbing Mahadev. So Mahadev comes to the podium and he's like, I'm extremely angry. You have destroyed my meditation. I will destroy your ceremony. And as he starts beginning to do that, Vishnu stops him and says, this is being done for the good of humanity, for the good of the universe. This, this yagya will have a lot of merit if it is completed. I'll not let you destroy this. So as Vishnu and Mahadev come face to face, almost about to clash, Brahma comes and says that if you two clash, the universe will explode because you are the two superpowers. So I beseech you, I plead with both of you, do not do that. They both agree and then they separate and calm is restored. At the end of it, Brahma tells them both that, you both have done is that you have removed fear from my heart. मेरे मन में भय था, आपने उस भय को हर लिया. Because आपने भय को हर लिया, I give you names. I give Vishnu the name Hari and I give Mahadev the name Har. Both mean the same, bhai ko harne wala. So the fact that you have taken away my fear is because I bestowed you with these two names, and when the two of you will be called named together, जब आपका एक साथ नाम लिया जाएगा, that will be called Harihar.
Acha.
So
Okay.
again, the fact that creation here is celebrated, that what has been created needs to be preserved for the good of mankind. So while this aspect is celebrated within our Purans, and it is the gods who come together and realize that it is extremely precious. Creation as itself, Srishti is very important within that. So while that is celebrated, at the same time, like you said, we also have dissolution, we also have the need for destruction, because जब तक कुछ खत्म नहीं होगा, the new cycle will not begin. So because it's cyclical in nature, ultimately destruction has to happen. So in the Puranas it is called Sarga and Pratisarga. Sarga is creation, Pratisarga is destruction. And both go hand in hand. And that again is the beauty of the Puranas, that it's not a paradox.
Yeah.
It's about these two opposites coming together, complementing each other in a way that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is what keeps the universe alive. The way
That's
the
a
process
beautiful
works.
answer. So in our part of the world, if we look at the Holy Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh being Shiva, very popularly, Shiva is worshipped, Vishnu is worshipped, but people don't quite worship
Brahma, yes.
Why is that the case?
So that again is a very interesting story mentioned in the Puranas, why Brahma is not worshipped. So it so happens that one day Brahma and Vishnu, they come together in a sort of a competition where they're like, I am better than you. I'm far more superior than you. So Brahma says that, why don't you enter my body and see what I encapsulate? And Vishnu enters Brahma's body and he sees this cosmos and world upon world and universe upon universe, everything being created, seeds germinating, babies and fetuses growing. So the whole concept of creation is around him in the most sublime way possible. And he comes out, he's wonderstruck. He comes out and says, wonderful, but why don't you now enter me and see what I encapsulate? And Brahma enters Vishnu and he sees universe upon universe, multiverses, and the past, present, and future, the entire span of time, everything that Vishnu as Mahavishnu encapsulates. So even he's wonderstruck. So there is no end to this competition. So how do they decide? And suddenly between the two of them emerges a fire pillar, an extremely fiery pillar, blazing red. And from that pillar comes a voice and says, why don't you find out the ends of this pillar? And whoever finds the end, either the upper end or the low end first, will be the higher god. So they both decide, let's do this. So Brahma takes the form of a swan and he flies up to find the upper part of the pillar. Vishnu becomes a boar, Varaha, and he starts digging into the earth to find the lower end of the pillar. Now, as Brahma keeps flying up, he seems there is no end to this pillar. It seems endless. And he's about to give up on this and say that, okay, I accept my defeat, when he sees a flower falling from the top. It's a Ketaki flower. And he asks the Ketaki flower, where do you come from? Ketaki says, from the upper reaches of this pillar. The Brahma finds a way that this is how I can win this battle. He tells Ketaki that do something for me. When we go down and we meet Vishnu again, lie to him. Tell him that I found you at the very top of the pillar, so I found the upper end of the pillar. And Ketaki agrees because Brahma being the creator, she is afraid to say no. So when they come down, Vishnu confesses that I went as far as possible, I could not find the lower end of the pillar. So I do admit defeat. Brahma says, but I found the upper end of the pillar. And here is my witness. And Ketiki says, yes, he did. And that's when that pillar erupts. And from that blazing inferno approaches Mahadev. And Mahadev says, do you even know what this is? This is the Anal Stambh. It is a Sadashiv. It has no beginning and no end. How could you find the upper end of this pillar? You lied. You lied because you wanted to win. Because you had the fear of losing. And a God who himself has fear in his heart, how will he remove fear from the hearts of others? So he says, from now on, I curse you that you will not be worshipped. And he says, this is not a curse. This is natural law. That a God who is himself afraid will not be able to help the others in any way possible. So from now on, Brahma will not be worshipped. And so will the Ketiki flower is also cursed. That he will not be used
In worship.
in worshipping for me particularly. So that's the reason that's given the Puranas why Brahma is sidelined and he is not worshipped among the humans.
There's no one who worships the Brahma?
There's only one temple in Pushkar, which is believed to be the only temple in Pushkar where, he has a temple. Otherwise, across India, I don't think so there are any temples of Brahma.
Correct.
Yeah.
Since you talked about Vrinda's curse, and we've just been talking about curses.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole Mahagathas are manifesting the way they are because of curses. Why are curses so rampant in the Mahagathas?
Curses, again, I think are vilified unfairly. It is true that a curse may, on the face of it, sound extremely harsh, sound extremely cruel and brutal. But if you read the Puranas, you read the stories in Mahagatha, you will actually realize that it is the curses that actually lead to something good. It's the boons that actually lead to something bad. And that again is a very interesting paradox, a very interesting puzzling aspect about the Puranas, but that is true. The curses act as some sort of a catalyst, and they have always led to Jan Kalyan, have always led to the good of mankind. Like I said, because Bhrigu curses Vishnu, only because of that he takes the avatars, and these avatars help mankind. It is because of that we have the Dashavatar of Vishnu, which ultimately goes on to save Dharma, so to speak, on earth. So that has happened throughout. For example, there's a curse where Aditi and Diti. So Aditi and Diti are two sisters who were married to Rishi Kashyap. And Aditi's sons were called the Adityas. So Indra was the eldest Aditya. While Diti's sons were the Daityas, the Asuras. And there was always constant battle happening between Adityas and Daityas. And when Daityas began to die, Diti then, and Diti sees her sons being killed in front of her. She curses Aditi that, you being a mother, you relish the fact that my sons are dying. So why don't I curse you back and say that a time will come when in front of your own eyes you will see your sons being butchered mercilessly and you will stand helpless and not being able to do anything. And this is Satyug, and this curse takes effect in Dwapar Yuga when Aditi is reborn as Devaki. And in front of Devaki's eyes, Kamsa kills her 7 sons. Her 6 sons actually, 7th and 8th are then saved. So you see again the completion of one curse that was uttered way back in Satyuga. The cycle completes itself in Dwapar Yuga with Aditi reborn as Devaki. And it is because of that curse that ultimately you have the birth of Balaram and then Krishna, who then, So curses have always been, like I said, a catalyst. They've always, it is that which sets a particular set of events into motion. It is that makes a particular person act in a certain way that will have a larger implication, that will keep that cycle going ahead and ultimately will come to its completion in some sort of the other. So curses have always been, like I said, they have always been agents of change. They've always led from one yuga to the other. It is a curse that has led to some sort of, a chemical reaction happening, and that has huge implications as we go ahead.
While you were saying, it made me, something that just struck me was, can the curses of that time be translated to karma in today's time?
Possibly, because again, like you said, see, everything uttered or done is a karma.
Yeah.
Karma is not just action.
Yeah.
Even a word spoken is also karma. So when a curse is uttered by a particular person, वो भी कर्म के फल में बंध गया है वहाँ पे. The moment he has uttered that curse, So moment that has happened and the karma and the cycle of karma begins, it has to end. The cycle has to have some sort of a fruition, some sort of a completion somewhere. So then you have the karma fall, which it will be in this yuga or later yuga.
Yeah.
But ultimately your karma and your curse are kind of inextricably tied to each
Correct.
other. Yeah,
But
yeah.
like you may not have curses as on today because we're not that
Yeah,
yogis.
yeah,
We're not the
yeah,
siddhas and the
yeah.
yogis, who are into sadhana.
But our actions,
Yeah.
our utterances,
Yeah.
they can set things in
Correct,
motion.
correct.
They can affect a person psychologically.
Yeah.
They can set a certain event into motion. They can, our thoughts, the way we speak, the way we utter words, the way we interact with each other. A lot of it can actually, can be agents of change, can be agents, or can just be catalysts of some sort of a chemical reaction happening somewhere. And then what implications that can have later is something. So you were definitely right that once, even if I utter a word or I perform or I act in some certain way, and
Yeah.
that particular thing opens the floodgates
Correct.
in some way
Of a
for
chain
some
reaction.
sort of a chain reaction, then I being the source of that will ultimately, it will be a part of my karma. And whether it's good or bad, accordingly, when the cycle is completed, if it was good, I will get some sort of merit from that. And if it was bad, I'll get some sort of demerit from that. So of course it gets they're completely tied to each other that ways.
So I was just thinking what curses was to those yogas, maybe karma is to this
Interesting,
yoga.
yeah.
I mean,
Exactly,
something that came
exactly.
up. Speaking of reincarnations, we know that Shiva's first wife and perhaps the only love of Shiva, Sati, then gets reincarnated as Parvati.
Yes, yes.
What does Parvati then get reincarnated as? Because we've seen, for example, Vishnu constantly getting reincarnated. So does that sort of chain reaction continue with Parvati or Sati?
Not
as well?
really, because once Parvati becomes the wife of Mahadev, so it's forever. I mean, they are together forever. So there's no reincarnation that happens after that, as such. But what is interesting about Parvati is that in one of the stories, again, it's one version of a story, tells you that actually goddess Kali came out of Parvati. So that, I think, is an interesting way of seeing if it's not typically an incarnation, but something where a goddess creates another goddess. And that story goes that once Mahadev and Parvati were bantering, and Mahadev just very playfully calls Parvati Kali. Now Parvati takes offense because she thinks that Mahadev is talking about her complexion. Because while Mahadev is supposed to be Gaurang, fair, Parvati was duskier compared to that.
Acha.
So she takes offense. And she goes away from Mahadev, and she's sulking in a forest. And then Brahma comes and says that, what happened? He said, look at Mahadev. He called me Kali. Brahma says, you are Pujaniya in every aspect. You are the mother nature. She says, whatever it is, I didn't like the fact. Why don't you make me fair? So Brahma says, fine, I'll do that if that will make you happy. So Brahma then, empowers her. He chants a mantra, and all the black cells, the darker cells that are there within Parvati, they all flow out of her body, and she's left as completely white and fair. So here Parvati becomes Gauri. Gauri meaning fair. So in that fair state, Parvati, now Gauri, goes back to Shiva and says, look at me now. Now I'm so fair, you can't call me Kali anymore. But Mahadev looks at her and again utters the word Kali. And at that point, it strikes her that he was not talking about her. He was talking about something else. He says there's something else that you're talking. What exactly is it? He says, what about those dark cells that flowed out of her body? Do you know what happened to them? She says, I don't know. She says, look there. And as she turns, in front of her stands a goddess, dark, born out of those cells that flew out of her body. She stands in front of her, and he says, who is she? She says, she is Kali. She is Kaushiki, because she has come out from your kosh. From every kosh of your body, she has taken birth, and so she is Kaushiki and she is Kali. And that's when Parvati realizes that he was not calling me Kali. He was calling out to this divine being inside me to come out, to manifest.
Okay.
And she asks, who is she? Who is Kali? And he says that she is the ultimate goddess who will who will vanquish evil on this earth. There are certain demons that even I cannot kill as Mahadev, or Vishnu cannot kill. Only she can kill. She is Kali, and she will take care of that. And that is where Kali comes out of Parvati. So that, I think, is a beautiful story about, like I said, one goddess emerging out of another, and how Kali came to this earth as this fierce avatar. So
Yeah.
Parvati
Why is it
or
fierce?
Gauri, the moderate avatars, the mellow ones, she is the one who is full of the more tamasic, the more, energy, fierce energy. Because darkness here, when you look at Kali and we look at the black skin, the darkness is not so much about complexion. It is more about the fact that it symbolizes the womb, the darkness of the womb. Everyone, when we are inside the womb, it's all dark. So it symbolizes the primordial point of creation. The very beginning of creation is that darkness. So she embodies that. And within that comes her energy and her power and her ferocity to go and to take care of whatever evil needs to be taken care of. So when you have Rakta Beej standing in front of Durga, she cannot kill Rakta Beej because every blood that flows out of Rakta Beej creates a new Rakta Beej, and Durga cannot kill her. So then Durga needs Kali. So when Kali comes, and moment she chops, his hands off, and as the blood starts flowing, she uses her tongue and she drinks up all the blood. So before a drop of blood can fall on the ground, Kali slurps it all. So
Okay.
as she keeps doing that, his clones start disappearing one by one. Ultimately, you have one left, and he is killed. So only she can kill certain demons because of that ferocity and the energy that Kali embodies as the very mother goddess.
And at what point does Shiva come? Because he
So
features
this
in the story.
happens, yes. So
Yeah.
this happens once she's filled with the blood of Rakta Beej, much like Narsimha, in that story. She's filled with some sort of a bloodlust, and there's anger and there's energy, and she's wild, and she's in a ferocious frenzy, and as she's wandering around in that state, and the universe shrinks in fear that what if she destroys us? That's when Mahadev comes and lies in her path, and then she's like, I'm sorry, and that immediately, that one moment, she's calmed and she goes back to her calmer state.
So the ferocity and the aggression of Kali is because
It's another aspect of the divine feminine, so to speak.
correct. But I'm trying to link it with the story. What was the trigger? Was it that the primordial element, at the start of everything, it's all
yeah, it is like that, like the very initial, the very primal state of where you are, you are completely untamed, you're completely unclothed, you're completely in a very what should I say, in a very unadulterated, in a very that original state, much like how a child is born. So there are no layers.
Correct.
There is no artifice.
Yeah.
Kali has no artifice. There are no layers.
Yeah.
Kali is bare.
Yeah.
Kali is how Mother Nature is, in her most energetic, in her most fierce, in her most primal state.
Another facet about Shiva is that after the tragic loss of Sati, Shiva vows to never remarry and to never have a child.
Yeah.
Soon after Parvati comes, Parvati and Shiva end up together. They get married and they have a child. And obviously, they're the most powerful couple in the existence. There's a beautiful story to it, how they got married and what the intention behind it was, and how does Kartikeya come to be.
Right.
Please take
right,
us through that.
Right. So it actually all begins with a demon called Tarka.
Okay.
So Tarka prayed to Brahma and said, I want immortality, as every demon at that point wanted. Brahma said, immortality is something that cannot be granted. Ask me for anything else, but not immortality. So Tarka thinks, what can be done? What can be done to prolong my life on in this universe? At that point of time, Shiva had just lost Sati. So Shiva was in a state of complete detachment. He was locked in his meditative self, and within himself he was engaged with his pain, his hurt, all of that, and he had completely retreated from the world, from all the affairs of the world, and he was up there meditating, almost like a block of stone. He had become that, completely unresponsive to everything and everyone around him. Tarka felt, this is something I can use to my advantage. Tarka tells Brahma, then give me this boon that I can only be killed by the son of Mahadev. And the reason for that was he knew that Mahadev is in such a sort of shock and pain on losing Sati that he will never remarry again. And if he does not marry, he'll never have a son. So there is no one who can kill me. So that is something Brahma agrees to. And of course, he's emboldened now with that particular boon, that now I'm practically immortal, because the one who will kill me will never be born. So Tarka goes on a rampage, creates havoc across the 3 universes. And that's when the gods gather and say, we have to get Mahadev out of that state of shock and out of that state of mourning. And he needs to marry again, and he needs to produce a son who can take care of Tarka and kill him. That is where Parvati comes into the picture. And initially, while Mahadev is hesitant to again accept Parvati as his wife, but he realizes that she is actually Sati reborn, and that their union is important for the good of the universe, because they need a son for Tarka. So that's where Mahadev finally accepts Parvati. Parvati, in fact, fasts for, after a point comes when she starts eating only leaves, nothing else but leaves. And she even, after a point, she starts even having those leaves. She gets the name Aparna, which means without, not even a leaf. So when she becomes that kind of a state of Aparna, that is when Mahadev accepts her and then they marry. Now they marry, so the gods are happy. Ki, chalo, now we'll have the son that was promised, who will kill Taraka. What happens is that for a long time they are waiting and there's no news of any child being born. So they send Agni to go and find out what is happening. As Agni enters the realm of Mahadev and Parvati, unfortunately he catches them at a point when they're having coitus. And as they detach, because Agni enters, Shiva's semen falls. And that semen is the one that would create the sun. So that semen has to be protected. So what Agni does is that Agni takes the form of a bird and he swallows the semen. Okay, at least I'll keep it within me so that I can use it later to manifest the sun. But that semen is full of so much of energy that Agni starts burning. Even the fire starts burning in itself. So then Agni does something. He deposits that semen by a river. And near those river are reeds, a forest of reeds. There, manifesting from that semen, is born Kartikeya. And once he is born, he's taken care by 6 mothers who are 6 stars, 6 nakshatras who come and take care of him. And as he grows, Parvati and Mahadev hear the news that their son has taken birth. They go and they reclaim him. And Kartikeya comes here. And as a child commander, he goes and he faces Taraka and he kills him. So again, a lot of these actions have to be done for a lot of the
Larger good.
larger good hai. And the fact that a demon has to be killed, then you also need to take Mahadev out of that state of mourning. He needs to come back to a much happier state. And what's interesting about Mahadev and Parvati is that if you see, Mahadev is some sort of once from a hermit, he becomes a householder. Because he has a family in Kailash, he has sons,
Correct.
he has Kartikeya, he has Ganesha, he has a proper family. So his journey from a hermit to a householder, even that is very interesting in the Purans.
Since we just spoke about demons. Demons as a theme really fascinates me. And through the Mahagatha lore, we have several mentions of demons. So can you take us through some of the most popular stories of demons? I think we can begin with Mahishasura.
Mahishasura, I think, it's quite a popular story that he was a demon who again pleases Brahma and he wants a boon to be immortal. And Brahma says, but that's not possible. Ask for something else. And just like Taraka has said, I can only be killed by the son of Mahadev. Mahishasura says, I can only be killed by a woman.
Why?
In his mind, the woman was probably the weakest of creatures possible. So in his mind, she could never be vanquished by a woman. So he says, anything else but a woman. And he gets that boon. And again, he creates havoc. So immediately, the only way to kill him is to create a goddess who can then come across as his antidote and who can then slay him. And that is where all the gods come together. And out of their collective energy appears Durga. Durga, the very name Durga means fort, Durg, which something that protects. So Durga is then empowered. So she gets the weapon of every god. So Mahadev ka Trishul, Vishnu ka Chakra, Indra ka Vajra. So and if you see the iconography of Ma Durga, what is very interesting is that if you look at the gods, the male gods, one particular weapon can only be wielded by one particular god. So Trishul can be wielded by Mahadev. Chakra is Vishnu's. But when you look at Durga, in that one form, one single feminine form, you see all the weapons of the universe coming together.
Yeah.
So the fact that here, so again we are celebrating the sacred feminine, the power of the feminine power, that her power is so vast. Her capacity is so limitless that she can wield all the weapons together, which for the normal gods, for the male gods, it's one weapon for per god. But for Durga, when she comes in that magnificent state, in that supreme femininity and that supreme divine power of the feminine, she can wield all the weapons together. And in that form, she goes and she kills Mahishasura. So that is how we celebrate the victory, not just of good over evil, but also of the sacred feminine.
Okay. The underlying nuance here for the viewers is that it is believed, gods can't use each other's weapons, right? So maybe Sudarshan Chakra Vishnu ko mila Shiva se, but now Shiva can't use the chakra and Trishul can't be used by Vishnu.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's an exception because she uses all three,
All
manages
the
them,
weapons.
wields them.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
is a master of them.
It's a master of them. That's what I'm saying. So here is, like I said, here is the sacred feminine who is not bound by one particular weapon, but she encompasses it all. It's just like the way we look at the Puranas celebrate a woman, as the nurturing agent, the nourishing agent.
Yeah.
So the woman has always been an all-encompassing figure.
Correct.
And once you are that, then everything comes into your fold, and you are that one. In fact, there's a line where she comes in front of Mahishasur, and Mahishasur mocks her that you stand here with borrowed weapons. None of this is yours. ये महादेव का त्रिशूल है, ये विष्णु का चक्र है, इंद्र का वज्र है, ब्रह्मा का ये है, तो आपका क्या है? And she mocks him back saying, how ignorant are you? I am Brahma, I am Vishnu, I am Mahadev, I am Brahmani, I am Vaishnavi, I am Maheshwari. So I am all encompassing. They are all me, and I am all them.
Superb.
So that is what Durga really symbolizes.
And the feminine really symbolizes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of curses, again, I was very fascinated to learn this, that there was a Maha-celestial war, a quarrel between the three goddesses, your Lakshmi, Ganga and Saraswati.
Yes.
And they cursed each other. Yeah. And it was because of the curse that Ganga becomes a sacred Ganga river, Saraswati disappears and gets seated next to Brahma, and Lakshmi becomes a sacred Tulsi plant. It was because of a curse, so not by choice.
So that again is interesting. It's kind of about the three goddesses quarreling and squabbling with each other. That's quite a interesting story there. So it so happens that this was when Ganga had not descended on earth as a river, and she was very much in heaven, and she fell in love with Vishnu because Vishnu was so charming to look at. So she was infatuated by Vishnu, and because of that, she had a fight with Saraswati and Lakshmi. They both say that this is wrong. How can you be, he is the consort of Lakshmi. And so the three start quarreling. And as they quarrel, they curse each other. At the end of it, Saraswati even tries to hit Ganga.
Cat fight.
Almost that's sort of a thing. And then Lakshmi tries to actually, keep them apart, but she also gets caught in the fight. And then they all end up cursing each other. So then Vishnu comes and he asks the three of them, what have you cursed each other? Let me hear. So Lakshmi says that Ganga has cursed me that I shall take birth on earth as a plant. The Vishnu says, yes, that will happen. You will take birth as the Tulsi plant. But don't worry, I'll also reincarnate as the Shaligram, the stone. So we shall be together. So even in that state, while you are a plant, I will also be there with you in the form of a stone. So we shall be there together even in that state. That is one. Then he asks the others, what have you cursed each other? So then Ganga says that I have been cursed that I will become a river. He says, yes, that will also happen. Very soon, Bhagirath will be praying for the deliverance of his sons, and he will be forced to go down on the earth as a river, and he will clean the unclean. You will purge the sinners. That will be your destiny for earth. And then he says, what have you cursed Saraswati? Saraswati says, I have been cursed, I too will become a river. So that will also happen. You'll also flow down in the form of a river, but since you physically hit Ganga, you will disappear. So today, if you look at Saraswati, she's not visible on earth. She flows underground. So those are three curses, that how the goddesses cursed each other and how the ramifications are what we are today, on earth. We see the Tulsi and Shaligram river happening. We see Ganga purging millions every year. That is her duty.
Yeah.
And we see Saraswati is now looped.
Yeah.
She flows underground. So that is how the curses came to be.
Okay. So Puranas also have a tendency to personify or humanize elements of nature, be it trees, be it flowers, be it sun. So we have the sun god, we have the moon god. So what is the reason behind this?
So I think that again is another vehicle of using them also to impart wisdom. So the moment you humanize a particular object, like a tree or a leaf or a flower or a mountain, you kind of imbue that with human values, with human imperfections. And how does that imperfection play out? And what wisdom do we glean out of that? Like there's a very interesting story in the Puranas. It's interesting you mentioned about the personification of nature.
Yeah.
So Vindhya is a mountain that is very popular in the Puranas. It so happens that Vindhya at one point of time becomes very jealous of another mountain called Sumeru, because Sumeru is the tallest of the mountains. And Narad is the mischief maker here. He comes and he tells Vindhya that, I have just come from Sumeru and it's beautiful. It towers high into the clouds, and, it's a sight to watch. And I wish you were even half as beautiful. And Vindhya cannot sleep that night. Like, how could someone be more beautiful than me? How can someone be more taller than me? Human emotions, like we feel when you look at someone doing well, you have that element of jealousy and wanting to be where that person is. Similar emotions when they're like, what do I do? How do I then make myself even better than Sumeru? So overnight, Vindhya raises itself high and high and high. And so high that when the morning comes and the sun starts to encircle the earth, Vindhya is blocking the way of the sun and refuses to go down. It says, I will not. Sun says, but you are blocking my path. If I do not make this travel, the earth will die, the humans will die, animals will die. But he says, I don't care. Today I am the tallest. I am the strongest. I am the most magnificent of them all. The gods come and they try to tell him some kind of sense. He does not listen to anybody. What to do? Then finally the gods decide that there is a sage called Agastya. He's very wise.
Agastya
Let's
Muni
go
ki
to
baat
him.
ho rahi hai?
Yes,
Okay.
Agastya Muni. Let's go to Agastya Muni. He will have a solution for this. Agastya says, fine, I'll take care of Vindhya, don't worry. He comes to Vindhya and he tells Vindhya that, listen, first of all, he praises him. Ki, my God, how magnificent, how beautiful, how sublime that you are. And with all the flattery that pleases Vindhya, he says, okay, what can I do for you? And the sage says, listen, I'm going down south to, I have some work, but I can't climb you. You're just way too high. I'm this old man. Do me a favor, lower yourself to how you were, initially in the original height. Let me climb you and go to the south. And once I come back, you can again raise your height up. Can you do this much for me? He says, of course, you've praised me so much, and I love the way you've celebrated me. I'll do that for you. So Vindhya goes down its normal height. The sage crosses him. Vindhya says, come back very soon, I'm waiting for you. The sage says, of course, I'll be back in a jiffy. So Agastya goes. The mountain is now in its normal state. The sun starts walking. Everything is normal again. So today we have everything is normal. The sun is still circling the earth. Vindhya is still waiting for Agastya to come back. He never returned back. So again, the idea of jealousy, of ambition, of wanting to be the best, but at what cost? So again, these teachings, these parables, these values are imparted not just through gods and humans and goddesses and asuras, but even through these natural objects like Ketaki, the flower, and the fact that the flower lies and that is punished because of that, or the way Vindhya acts. There are even stories where the sun gets jealous of a city in the heaven because that city sparkles brighter than the sun. There's another story there. So again, you have human emotions being imparted to these objects, and what is the wisdom that we get from them that will help us as human beings.
Sure thing. At two instances, I felt like there was an overlap between our culture, the Sanatan Dharma, the Hindu way of life, and the Western culture. The first was the whole Vishnu Matsya story.
Kind of like Noah's Ark.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
That's the first.
Yeah.
And second is the Holy Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, in our
Father,
part of the
Son,
world.
and Holy Ghost.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Do you think that there has been some borrowing of either religion or culture between these two cultures?
See, there are many instances. ये तो दो instances आपने बताया. There are so many. Even for example, when Krishna is born, Kansa tries to kill every baby who was born by sending Putana. Something similar happens when Jesus is born. When they try to kill every child. And so Jesus has to move out of Bethlehem. So a lot of these stories, you see similarities across cultures. And this has been thought about, debated about for very long. I may not claim to have the exact perfect answer to that because it's still a lot of speculation as to what could have happened. Some reasons could be one that, we have always had an oral tradition of storytelling. So, and that tradition travels a lot. So the fact that in the past, when those stories were told, those stories traveled across continents, across countries, and the same stories then get adapted by their own cultures in their own ways. But certain elements remain, the fundamental element remains the same of the story. But as it travels, whether it was through maritime, whether through trade, the fact that you had people coming across countries and traveling everywhere. So culture spread, stories spread. And oral traditions spread even faster. I mean, imagine ships going from India to Rome, and on the ship, a man tells them the story of Lord Krishna, how he was born, and that story gets carried to Rome, and then they create their own story out of that. So that is one thing, because of oral tradition and the way we traveled in the past, they just went around. Also possible there was probably one meta civilization that had all the stories at the beginning, which was the very core civilization, which was the primal civilization, so to speak. And they then started separating, and as they spread across the continents, across the world, those stories went with them, and then they acquired different forms here and there culturally, but the fundamental remained the same.
Again, I learned through one of your stories that Vishwamitra at one point considered eating meat and also said that it can be offered to the divine.
Yeah.
Very controversial.
Yeah.
Help me understand this.
So again, it's a bit of a controversial story. It is in the Puranas. So the story goes that at one point of time, at the very cusp of the Treta Yuga and the Dwapar Yuga, there was a terrible famine that spread across earth, and humans were dying, animals were dying, nothing was growing, so there was nothing to eat. In that state, Vishwamitra and his disciples were looking around for food, and they found nothing. As they were looking around, one disciple comes up to them holding something. He says, I have found this. Can we eat this? Now, there are various versions in various stories what that meat was. Some say it was a dog meat. That's a carcass of a dog. Other animals are mentioned in other stories, but it was definitely meat. The disciples are horrified. He said, how can you even offer meat to us? Throw it away. A filthy animal, unclean animal, throw it away. Vishwamitra says, no, we can eat this meat. He says, why? He says, because at this point of time, the greatest virtue that we need to have is that of survival. And he coins a term which he calls is the apad dharma. Apad meaning emergency, apad kal. And dharma is the dharma that you follow in such an emergency situation. So Vishwamitra says that in a situation like this where there are no options left and the only important thing is to survive, it's not sacrilege, it's not a sin to even consume this meat.
Understood.
And he said, before I consume, I'll even offer it to the gods. Because tradition said that before you eat yourself, you offer it to the gods. He said, I will even do that. Because right now, I have no options left. And apa dharma mein, it is not a sin. I am not performing any sort of sacrilege by doing this. And as he is about to offer the meat, Indra is horrified. Okay, how can this be done? So Indra immediately starts raining. And so the famine gets over. So the central tenet here is that of apad dharma. Okay, there are times in the direst of straits when you have, your very survival is at stake.
Yeah.
What will you do?
Yeah.
Now, this is a story that, again, I'm sure will depend on what you choose to believe.
Yeah.
Some might want to say that I would rather die than actually go against my dharma, go against my
I'm assuming
traditions
Jainism, for example.
and consume
Yeah.
this. And some would say, I think it's a more practical solution to take. So again, there are two ways in front of you. Which one do you want to take? Is your conscience, your worldview, and entirely up to you.
We do these yearly retreats in Ladakh. We do the yoga retreats, and there are several monks in Ladakh who consume the yak meat, and their philosophy is just this, because वहाँ सब्जियाँ कितनी उगती हैं,
exactly.
especially from the olden
and
times.
the cold,
and the cold.
Yeah.
So even Brahmins, I mean, these days a lot of Brahmins do consume non-veg, but there was a time, for example, in Bengali, Bengali Brahmins or the Konkanastha Brahmins ate fish and rice.
Yeah. In fact, there's a story of. Very quickly, I'll talk about this because talking about meat, about Veda and Bhila. These are the two devotees of Mahadev. Now, Veda is a Brahmin, so he finds this old ruined Shiva temple in the forest, and he would go every day, clean it up, and pray. Suddenly, one day he starts finding meat there being offered to Mahadev, and he starts cleaning it up. But every day he comes back, there's meat again, and he says, "I'll hide and see who's leaving this meat here." He hides and he sees a tribal called Bhila coming every day and offering meat. And as he offers, Mahadev appears in front of him and talks to Bhila and says, I've been waiting for you. Why are you so late today? He says, I'm so sorry. I'll come back. I'll come early tomorrow. And he goes back. And as he goes back, Veda comes and confronts Mahadev. Ki, I've been praying for you my entire life. Not once you appeared in front of me. But he who offers you meat, this low caste tribal, you shower your affection on him and not on me. Why, Mahadev? Mahadev says, no, it's not about caste, it's about heart. I see his heart, but here I only see caste. So again, it's not about pollution, purity, it's about love and devotion. And even that can sway even the gods to accept you the way you are.
Beautiful. You spoke to me about the Bhavishya Puran. Can you give me like a very brief 1 minute insight on what the Bhavishya Puran is all about? Is it a prophecy or?
So Bhavishya Puran, for many, don't accept it as a part of the canon of the original Purans, because Bhavishya Puran was something that was written much, much later.
Okay.
Probably around the time the Christian influence started coming to India. So a lot of the stories of Bhavishya Puran actually are stories of the Bible. So you have stories of Adam and Eve, of course Indianized. So you have Adam and you have Hawa, the way they are mentioned. You have Adam and you have Havyavati. So Eve is called Havyavati. And the story remains the same of them being thrown out of a garden because of what they did. You have story of Noah, who is called Nuha. So Nuha and the story of the flood. So there are these instances where you have Bhavishya Puran, where stories, some are even Islamic stories that are mentioned in the because of those influences that started coming in by then. Islamic invaders, Christian missionaries, as they came in and they brought in their mythology. We spoke about how stories travel to oral traditions.
Yeah.
As their stories came here, we started incorporating them into our own Puranas and creating this new kind of a text. It's an amalgamation, more or less, of various cultures and their stories into one. So again, it's a bit of a controversial text because not many accept it as a seminal Purana.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it has, again, talks about cultures coming together, how amalgamations take place and ultimately how one influences the other. So I think it's a very interesting text for those who would like to read that.
And I think in a way also blurring that religious divide.
It does, because also adapting each other's thoughts and ideas and adapting each other's, for example, not many know that there is a version of the Mahabharata in Indonesia. Now, Indonesia being a Muslim nation, there are a lot of Islamic changes in the story. Like, for example, in the Indonesian Mahabharata, out there, Draupadi only marries Yudhishthir because they don't accept polygamy.
Okay.
Because a woman can only have one husband there. In that version, Draupadi only marries Yudhishthir, not the other four brothers. So like that, how you take something that comes and you make it your own through your own cultural lens that you put through. I think it's a fascinating process of how stories happen, travel, and how cultures intermingle, and ultimately, I think it just makes us all richer in terms of the content that we get to convert, and it tells us that there's a realm of possibilities out there that we should not shy away from.
Beautiful, because we're living in a world where there's so much judgment. People are constantly trying to see everything is black and white, so many conclusions, but life is not a conclusion. In the yogic sciences, we say conclusion is death, logic is death to a point. Because you cannot template everything. So thank you so much for this retelling. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I'm not a text person, but like I said, it's moved me beautiful. It's really touched me so deeply, and I can't thank you enough for having this conversation with me.
Thank you, Shloka. I had a lot of fun myself, and I hope the readers have great takeaways from our conversation. It was a pleasure doing this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Namaskaram.
In case you'd like to be a part of our online and in-person yoga, diet and spiritual programs, you can join our WhatsApp group below, where we post all our upcoming programs and give free tips on health, diet and lifestyle.